Okay, we are live. We're going to let it breathe just for a moment here while we bring on Facebook and uh, and Instagram. We'll get tonight's conversation rolling. Hope everybody's had a great weekend and we're good. So, welcome in everybody. It's the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, we were off, of course, Friday, Saturday. We're back here this evening, but in between Thursday night and tonight, the Broncos finally made it official, hiring Darren Rizzy as the special teams coordinator. So I know people in the community have been wanting to hear your thoughts on it. So first things first, your gut reaction to what perhaps was a fait accompli.
Yeah, I think it's a good hire. The familiarity with Sean Payton and Darren Rizzy is obviously, Chad, unmatched. I'm still a little surprised they moved on from Kotwika. That was totally unforeseen, at least on my part. But everything I know about New Orleans special teams shows it's probably a good hire. They were consistent. They were explosive. It helps having the right players. They had Rashid Shaheed at punt returner. They have Marvin Mims in Denver now. He's a very excitable coach, Chad. He'll compliment you on the sideline, go crazy, but he's not afraid to also go off on you based on the clips I've seen floating around Twitter. So good hire. Ultimately, it depends how the players perform, but I like Sean Payton getting another one of his guys in the fold.
So here's some interesting like tinfoil hat stuff because Kotwika, since Sean Payton has been in Denver, a once terrible third phase unit has become one of the better units in the NFL under Westhoff and Kotwika. So listen to this. On November 4th, the Saints fired Dennis Allen. So if you're Sean Payton, you're going, ooh, my boy might be available at the end of the season, right? Even though, he was named as assistant head coach, he was named the interim. Sean Payton's going, okay, Rizzy might be coming free here. Then that was the very next week, Zach. That was followed by the block kick heard round the world at Arrowhead, right? And 2 days after that, Mike Westhoff steps down for health reasons. Okay, which I actually believe. I believe though it was one of those things where he had not believe. Let me rephrase that. My guess, or I could see, where it's something like these are health issues that he's been carrying for a while, but something happened in the wake of that block kick that spurred some action, whatever it was, or disagreement. I don't know. I'm not reporting that. This is me guessing, right? All right. Then you got to have somebody coaching the special team. So Kotwick is sticking around. Heads were rolling, dude. Not only because Rizzy got, cut loose by the Saints, but because of what happened at Arrowhead. Maybe that's all just too tinfoil. I don't know. But I think this was something Sean Payton in his head had been hoping for and kind of staging and planning for. Even Zach, perhaps the block kick notwithstanding, even if that, throw that out. As soon as Rizzy was going to be available, I think Sean Payton dominoes started falling.
I don't think it's that crazy. Look who we brought aboard: Joe Vitt, Pete Carmichael, Joe Lombardi. He has a lot of his former guys with him. He likes to have that sort of that cocoon of familiarity, and I don't really blame him for that, Chad. But my bigger takeaway though is there's a certain narrative out there. I don't want to name any names, that there's so many coaches jumping ship from Denver right now. No one wants to coach under Sean Payton. Well, this kind of proves that they could still land a big fish or two if Sean Payton wants to.
The Papa Bear jumping in with an early super chat before we went live. Thank you, David. Really stoked to see you tonight, my friend. We're appreciative as always. Says, good evening, Broncos country. Let's go, Bo. Yeah, indeed. Let's go, Bo. Feeling it tonight. Also, we have Taylor jumping in. What's up, Taylor Christensen? Great to see you tonight, my friend. Says, bring Hill on and still draft early on a tight end. Both would be an upgrade on what we had. Genty still concerns me with his fumbles. Melvin Gordon vibes. Go Broncos. MSG for life. So that kind of is our segue into the main topic. Although there was a few other things we could still talk about relative to Rizzy. But the Broncos, well, first of all, the reporting, Ian Rappaport saying it's looking like Taysom Hill and the Saints are cruising for a parting of the ways. And then multiple local beat reporters have just kind of been connecting the dots. Broncos expected to pursue Taysom Hill. I wrote an article about it over the weekend, also just kind of connecting dots and analyzing the situation a little bit, Zach. First things first, because we got to also address that he's not healthy. right? He's coming off injury, but do you see that as not just a possibility, but a probability? I mean, he's on the books for 10 million this year in New Orleans. I can't imagine that the new regime keeps him around at that number. But your thoughts, just generally, on Taysom Hill?
It's tough when we get on these podcasts, Chad. I ask you a question, you ask me a question, and for me, I try to separate what I want the Broncos to do and what I think the Broncos will do. And what I think the Broncos will do is at least try to recruit Taysom Hill. I just mentioned Sean Payton loves having his boys around. That includes players. Look at little Jordan Humphrey, players like Michael Burton, and so on. What I think the Broncos should do is ignore Taysom Hill. He's going to be 35, I think it is. You mentioned the injury he's coming off of, which was pretty nasty in the middle of the season. He was also beat up before that. He had like rib issues and stuff. And he doesn't solve the long-term need at tight end. Again, going to be 35 and kind of a short-term rental. You need a long-term answer at that position. And if Taysom Hill isn't it, then what's the point besides the familiarity?
I think that he offers you. I mean, look, the weird position that he plays, which is like he's part quarterback, part wildcat quarterback, part running back, part tight end, part big slot. Like he does so much, and that was all the creation of Sean Payton, right? Taking him from being a straightforward quarterback coming out of BYU undrafted to what he became. I mean, even Broncos lost a game to him as the quarterback. Granted, it was the mythical Zach, we don't have a quarterback game when Kendall Hinton started, but Shiloh, round 1, Loveland, 2, Henderson, 3, Paul, 4, Ferguson. That'd be a solid first 4 picks there, Shiloh, if that's indeed how it shook out. I can't hate on it, my friend.
No, and Shiloh, this is how you answer the tight end position for the next, hopefully, 10 years. That's why I don't want, a waste of time on Taysom Hill. I would love the first 2 addressing tight end and running back. I happen to love Henderson. I think he would fit in Sean Payton's offense perfectly, and you answer 2 of your biggest positions of need back to back. Love it.
Hey, Eric, brother, thank you. Appreciate it. It's great to see you on Facebook tonight, my friend. Rock and roll. Thank you for the stars, Eric. The Broncos around Bo Nix, Zach, they just need impact, right? They need playmaking ability, guys who can help shoulder the load. And in the case of Taysom Hill, he's getting a little long in the tooth. He's 34. Now, he also served an LDS mission. So the mileage on that 34-year-old body is more akin to a 32-year-old, all right, because that's 2 years of their life that they take away from football, come back, then play their football. But the Broncos, look, they need running back help. They need tight end help. They need wide receiver help. Would he be the fail swoop fix all for all those or even one of those? No, but he knows the offense like the back of his hand. In fact, he had to be the quarterback of Payton's offense. He knows it well. And you look at how the Saints used him last year. I mean, a lot of running back stuff, a lot of wildcat stuff. He ended up, think about this. Javonte Williams led this team in rushing. All right. 4 touchdowns last year, 4 rushing touchdowns last year. And again, this is only in 8 games that Hill appeared in for the Saints. Rushed the ball 39 times for 278 yards. By the way, that's about half of what Pookie's total full season rushing total was. 6 rushing touchdowns. And then he caught 23 passes for 187 yards. And that was in kind of a weird season where he missed a lot of time. So with a Bo Nix, you could use him as a tight end. You could use him just as that weapon that moves around a little bit, short yardage, handoff, wildcat stuff. I could see why Sean Payton, Zach, like you, let's separate the hemispheres, what I want and what I kind of maybe expect the Broncos to do. For me, those two things kind of line up. I'm not saying Taysom Hill would be some, again, fix-it-all guy at all these need positions, but being that Sean Payton guy, being the guy, coming and reuniting with the guy who basically created his NFL career in many ways. I mean, he had to earn it and he had to go out and execute, but I could see it being beneficial to the Broncos. You just would have to keep your expectations in check. He's not solving tight end. He's certainly not solving running back.
Yeah, I think I'll meet you in the middle here. He's a good football player, or at least he was in his prime. I just question whether how much he can offer you consistently, Chad. If he could stay healthy, if he's going to be the same Taysom Hill he was a few years ago, but no doubt he'd be an upgrade simply because the personnel groups and in tight end and running back were so bad. Is he better than Javonte as a rusher? Probably. Is he better than Adam Troutman as a tight end? Probably, but that's not saying much. I just think that Sean Payton can find a Mr. Fix-It, a Swiss Army knife, whatever you want to call it in the draft, or devote the resources exclusively to those positions. So instead of getting a tight end and running back, draft a tight end and draft a running back. Like Shiloh said earlier, Loveland and Henderson, 1 and 2, boom, boom. Your needs are fixed for at least the next 3-5 years.
Speaking of the next little stretch, listen, we don't have any football games, right, to hang our hat on. We got the draft coming up. First of all, we got the combine, end of the month. Zach and I will be there for you guys.
Sure.
Then we've got the draft. Then we got free agency. Then we've got the draft. But the actual games were a long ways out. So for those of us who are just absolute sports nuts, at least we have, like right now, basketball. And when your favorite star is scoring that bucket, we're going to give you an alley-oop opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play now in your state. So ask yourself, do you want to win 1,000 times your money? Well, you can with Underdog.
To play, choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats like points, assists, rebounds, and more. Underdog's got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. Create entries with all basketball picks or mix and match across other sports. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into $1,000 just with your basketball knowledge.
Exactly, guys. I've loved playing Underdog. I've loved having it on my phone. It's also very entertaining, let alone, making your picks and all that stuff. It's a lot of fun. So download the Underdog app. Sign up now using the promo code MHuddle to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun when you sign up with our promo code MHuddle. Claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit.
Must be 18 plus and 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado. For some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
All right, back to the conversation at hand. Zach, listen to this, okay? George Fox is jumping in, and he's saying, guys, on Facebook, I don't want Hill. I don't see him helping Denver Broncos for life, MHH for life. Hey, man, this is one of those perfect examples, different strokes, right? And beauty being in the eye of the beholder. But George Fox, just some food for thought, my friend, is I already mentioned what he did last year. Let's just go back and look at, say, the last 2 years with Sean Payton, which would have been 2020 and 2021. Now, just keep in mind, in 2020, Drew Brees was hurt quite a lot, so he played a lot of football. He started at quarterback 4 games, going 3-1. So that season, all right, just as a rusher, 87 rushes, 457 yards, 8 touchdowns. He also caught like 8 balls, 100 yards, touchdown that year. 2021, this was Sean Payton's swan song final season. 70 carries, 374 yards, 5 touchdowns, and then he also chipped in just 4 receptions, 52 yards. And believe it or not, his career high, Zach, in rushing came the first year that Payton was gone from the Saints, 575 yards and 7 touchdowns. And so, again, if it had anything to – let me qualify this. If this was Zach talking about a perfectly healthy Hill trying to – tap into a market at top dollar value that he thinks he can get. I mean, he's always going to try and get whatever all right. But like, if we were talking anything remotely like what he's been making in New Orleans, Zach, the last few years, or what he's on the books for base salary in New Orleans this year, $10 million, absolutely not. But as a guy who, he knows he's at the tail end, right? He's 34, even though the mileage is a little bit lower, he is 34, and he would have the chance to reunite with the guy who basically opened the door for his NFL career. I could see him being a nice little addition. That caveat is just simply, you're not overpaying for that, right? You're not overpaying for that. But I could see Sean Payton and Bo Nix getting real creative with how they could use Taysom Hill.
Yeah, I agree. Could he help? Again, is he going to get more rushing touchdowns than Javonte Williams? Probably. He's going to catch more passes than Nate Atkins or Lucas Kroll? Probably. It's not saying much, though. He can help, and he would be a help. I just question how much of a help, Chad, and for how long before his body breaks down. Father Time is undefeated after all. So, again, I'll meet you in the middle. I wouldn't mind if they took a flyer on Taysom Hill, but like any other free agent, I wouldn't want it to preclude Denver from drafting a tight end or drafting a running back if they so choose in the first couple rounds.
Indeed. So that's that. Your guys' thoughts on Taysom Hill, of course, we're always going to be happy to hear. But Zach, I want to grab this from. I was just there. I saw it. I passed. Someone asking if there's a. I think it's Adam asking if there's a long-term answer for tight end and free agency. Zach, in the last couple days, something like that, Bob Morris, he put out. Now again, these are his top 10 tight ends that are going to be available in free agency. And I just want to throw a few names at you. We did this the other day when he published his running backs. All right. But here's just a few names. So what about Mike Gesicki, Juwan Johnson, Zach Ertz, Austin Hooper, Tyler Conklin? Those are the top 5 guys. Would any of those 5 guys, in your opinion, offer any kind of long-term upside for the Broncos? Keeping in mind that Gesicki's 29.
We would have to define long term, and long term to me is like 3 to 5 years at the very minimum. And all those guys, Chad, there's a reason why they're going to be free agents, because they were role players, backups, busts, whatever. Gesicki, a lot of Broncos fans want him, but he was a part-time player in Miami. He was kind of a part-time player in Cincinnati until he had a big season with Joe Burrow this year. I guess I wouldn't mind him, but again, I wish, or I would hope it wouldn't preclude Denver if they wanted Loveland in round 1 or they wanted Tyler Warren in round 1. That's not going to stop me because I signed Mike Gesicki.
I mean, even Zach Ertz, like he's the same age basically as Taysom Hill. This last season with Jaden Daniels started all 17, so you got that reliability. Although if you look at his preceding 4 years, he missed a lot of football. But this year he stayed healthy. 91 targets, 66 receptions, 654 yards, Zach, 7 touchdowns. I don't know that there is a long-term guy in this, but they're in this free agent class, but there are a few guys I could see the Broncos making some hay with potentially. But I still think the main impetus at tight end, the focus is probably going to be in the draft. But Gesicki interests me. Ertz interests me at the right price. Juwan Johnson interests me also, but I'm keeping my eyes open to the reality that Juwan Johnson isn't going to be like the fix-all. So there are some interesting guys at tight end. In fact, I would argue, Zach, it's a little bit more interesting relative to free agency than the running back crop this year. But that's, it's relative. It's negligible.
I could argue that there's not one player except for maybe T. Higgins, offense, in the entire NFL that the Broncos should go out there and throw a bag at, because they would be instant upgrades and long-term answers. There are no long-term answers on the offensive side of the ball. Invest on offense through the draft. Thank you, Gio. Preemptively, thank you.
We've got George in the house, one of the founding Super Chat superstars of MHH when we first started back in 2019 doing these as live streams. I mean, the podcast existed many years before that. But as a live stream, when we started doing it in 2019, and George, I remember you being there from basically the very beginning, and his awesome daughter, Jazzy. Give her shouts if you guys are watching on the big TV at home, which I know he likes to do. But, bro, thank you for the generous super chat. You've been a big supporter of ours for a long, long time. Love hearing from you when we DM each other. It's a lot of fun. So thank you for the very generous super chat, George. He says, "Hey, Broncos country, remember me? Hey, football priest, it's been a while. What a great feeling going into the offseason, coming after a successful season. The future is bright. Nobody is going to play Denver in 2025. Heck yeah, bro. I'm right there with you. It's a nice feeling. You got a big, box that's finally checked. You got that quarterback and you got the head coach. Those are the two most pivotal things that you got to solve to become a bona fide contender, Zach. And yeah, the Broncos took a massive step forward in those areas this year.
Yeah, thank you so much, George. It's incredibly generous of you. We always like seeing you around, and we'll always remember you. You're a staple in the community here. What I like, though, Chad, is there's a little bit of glazing going on in the national media about the Broncos 2025 prospects, but there's still that disrespect factor out there. I saw a couple things on Twitter. One was Bo Nix was ranked in a quarterback tier below Bryce Young and Caleb Williams. The other big NFL account included Jaden Daniels with a stat, even though Bo Nix matched those numbers. My point is the disrespect, Chad, is still prevalent, and we know they thrive on that, and they can use that to make an even better season in 2025. Thank you so much again, George.
Well, even a guy that you and I know, Jamal, what's up, dude? One of my favorite names. Hang tight just 5 seconds, Jamal. A guy that you and I know from our days back at CBS Sports. Dylan's got an article coming on this very topic. It's basically, as soon as we're off the show, this article is going to publish. But you remember Jeff Kerr, now of CBS
Eagles
Sports.
guy. Yeah.
He included the Broncos on his list of 5 teams poised for a major fall in 2025. And I just want you to listen to this take and how, as Dylan aptly puts in his piece, you guys are going to have to read this. It's a lot of fun. Uninformed, it actually is. Let me just read some of this to you real quick. You ready? Quote, "The Broncos deserve all the credit in the world for winning 10 games and making the playoffs with the rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. The last season's slide never happened as Denver held off a late Cincinnati charge to make the playoffs, snapping an 8-season playoff drought. Nix protected the football throughout the year while showing the big play capability with his arm, especially late in the year. So why would Denver take a dive in 2025, even if it's a small one? Replicating the first-ranked pass rush from last season will be very difficult, especially from a team that finished with 63 sacks and 5 players north of 5 sacks last season. The Broncos need more. It gets better. The Broncos need more production from their running backs and better blocking up front to take the pressure off Nix, too. He was the 3rd least sacked quarterback in the NFL. The Broncos don't, that's me, by the way. Then last thing, the Broncos don't have a brutal slate, a strength of schedule currently at 505, but will face the Texans, Eagles, Commanders on the road, the Kansas City Chiefs, Chargers, also in their division. Winning 10 games, last sentence, is possible for Denver, but it will be tough for the Broncos to match that win total and go back to the playoffs." Close quote. So just, it's like, do you actually know what happened at the end of the season? Like, the Broncos barely, it took the final game. Like, you want to talk about holding off a Cincinnati charge late in the season. Like, they had to get lucky, baby. And then the fact that Bo Nix, what do you mean protect Bo Nix? They protected the hell out of Bo Nix last year, Zach.
I like Jeff, so I'm not going to kill him too badly here, Chad. It's his opinion. He's entitled to.
Good guy.
Yeah, he is. He's entitled to it. But he's smart enough to know that parity exists in the NFL. And just because those teams that he mentioned were good this year doesn't mean they're going to be more challenging for the Broncos to play next season. He also didn't include the fact that they had no running game to speak of on offense anyway to help out Bo Nix, and they still won 10 games despite that. But this is how it's going to be. And I got a comment on Twitter that said the same thing. Unless they win, or even if they, despite them winning the Super Bowl next year, we're going to get the disrespect. We're going to get the hate. We're going to predict the predicted fall off of the Broncos. We don't subscribe to that around these parts, Chad, at all.
Right. Jamal, thank you for being patient, brother. Appreciate you, my friend. Great to see you. One of the coolest names in the MHH community, of course. He says, "Hello, Chad, Zach, and Broncos country. Running back, Ashton Genty. Tight end, Colston Loveland. Linebacker, Chris Paul Jr. Yeah, dude, those are 3 really interesting names for the Broncos. Ashton Genty, it kind of just depends on the week. Zach, is he projected to not get past the Cowboys? Is he predicted to, linger and fall? I don't know. Colston Loveland has single-handed. I would say it's probably a toss-up, barely edging on Loveland's favor in terms of the most commonly mocked player to the Broncos at 20. It's either Tyler Warren, the Penn State guy, or Colston Loveland, the Michigan guy. But yeah, those are 3 guys I like for the Broncos, Zach.
Yeah, only because Loveland's more realistically going to be there at 20 as opposed to Genty or Warren. But yeah, it's one or the other. Obviously, they're not going to get both, but either or. You flip a coin, it's going to help out Bo Nix. And I don't want to come across hypocritical. We're going to get asked this a billion times, Chad, between now and late April. Who do you want? Is, between pick your poison here. As long as the Broncos come out of the draft with a better supporting cast for Bo Nix, I don't care how the sausage is made, as long as it gets made and it tastes pretty good.
Well said. David Youngkin, and again, thank you, Jamal. Great to see you on Super Chat tonight, brother. David Youngkin jumping in also. So consistent. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a great weekend, David. He says, this is just my opinion. I don't think there is a free agent tight end or running back worth paying, because if they were, they'd be on a team. Just saying. That's like Mike Pritchard. One of my favorite things I've heard an analyst. He happens, to, of course, to be a noteworthy former player. But one of my favorite things I ever heard someone utter in the biz is there is no such thing as a free agent franchise quarterback. In other words, there's that occasional exception, Zach, that proves the rule, like Tom Brady landing in Tampa Bay, etc. But the point being, there's no such thing as a free agent franchise quarterback. You could maybe even argue Baker Mayfield. I'm digressing a little bit, because if he's a franchise guy, they're never going to let him hit free agency, right? And so it's kind of in this same ballpark what David's saying here, Zach.
Yeah, and if you look at a case-by-case basis of the running backs that are available, you don't want to hitch your wagon to any of their stars, like Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, Rico Dowdle. These are all backups, and these are all guys that are over the hill. They're going to be backups, and they were former starters, but you don't pay them like that anymore. No, I would encourage the Broncos to divest in the offense and free agency, focus on the defense, spend some money, and then in the draft, that's when you build the offense. That's when you get your tight end, and that's when you get your running back.
Yeah, there's some interesting possibilities, but the ones that are interesting, at least at running back, like, you'd have to throw in more money than I'd probably be comfortable with, like Aaron Jones. But, the free agent, no such thing as a free agent franchise QB. The exception list is very limited in modern canon. And honestly, free agency hasn't existed all that long. It's only existed since early / mid 90s, whenever they started. But you have Tom Brady short term. See, that also depends on how you define a franchise quarterback, because it implies long term, right? A true franchise guy. And Tom was 20 years into his career, and everybody knew it was very short term. But you could throw, of course, Tom Brady. You could throw Peyton Manning. He technically was a free agent, right? They did release him. Drew Brees is probably the biggest shining example, Mr. Producer, because he was a genuine free agent. His whirlwind free agent tour included 2 teams, though, because Miami and New Orleans. He was damaged goods. The Broncos injured him in the season finale. Brutal shoulder injury, and the doctors in San Diego didn't think he was going to come back from it, and they had just drafted Phillip Rivers, so it was like, hey, adios. But yeah, it's pretty rare. Now you can start splitting those hairs, Zach, and depending on how you want to define a franchise quarterback, like in the case of Baker Mayfield, I would maybe throw him in as a exception that proves the rule.
Yeah, that's why there's always a case-by-case basis. I saw Ralph Bracegirdle mention 3 running backs, Josh Jacobs, Saquon, and Derrick Henry. Those all landed in great, landing spots. And I don't think many people thought that Saquon would go on to have the season he did. Derrick Henry, I thought he was washed. I was wrong on that. I'll hold my hand up. But there are certain cases where you should spend the money. And the Broncos did want Josh Jacobs. That should be noted as well. But for the most part, you can't build a championship team through free agency. You have to draft and build up the foundation that way. Look at we're talking about the past, Chad. Look at the old dream team, 2010 Eagles with Nnamdi Asomugha and I think Michael Vick and everyone. What'd they do that year? Nothing. It's not how you win. Look at the 2024 Eagles. They built up through the draft, that defense. They win a Super Bowl. The Broncos were doing it the right way, the smart way, Chad.
Well said. Well said, my brother. Okay. Let's talk about that. You brought it up, the Bo Nix on the – I got to find this. That's the rookie class article. Hold on. Let me just find the article. Stand by. Yeah, here we go. He's straight disrespected in these NFL.com quarterback rankings. So NFL.com, this was an article that Eric wrote up for us, but Nick Shook, NFL.com, ranked all 59 starting quarterbacks of 2024. And he did it based on not just the regular season, but included playoffs. Nix was one of 14 starting quarterbacks to play in the playoffs. Despite that, NFL.com ranked him 20th. Quote, take a victory lap, Bo. This is Nick Shook. Denver's decision to spend its first-round pick on the Oregon product was met with plenty of immediate criticism, but Sean Payton trusted his gut and showed that he and the Broncos front office were correct in thinking Nix was the ideal fit for his offense. Payton consistently had his rookie passer on the move, and Nix thrived accordingly, so much so that he generated legit offensive rookie of the year buzz at midseason. Those takes tailed off once Nix encountered some difficulties, but his debut season was a resounding success nonetheless. So then you're going, okay, well then why did you rank him where you did if he was such a resounding success? Zach, you mentioned it, but I'm just going to list all the names up until Bo Nix, okay? And some of these are no-brainers. Some of them your guys are going to be scratching your head. Lamar Jackson, he has ranked first. Josh Allen, second. Joe Burrow, third. Jared Goff, fourth. Jaden Daniels, fifth. Baker Mayfield, sixth. Patrick Mahomes, seven. He's got Baker Mayfield over Patrick Mahomes. Okay.
And Jalen Hurts. Yeah, just won the Super Bowl.
Matthew Stafford, 8. Jalen Hurts, 9. Jordan Love, 10. Justin Herbert, 11. Geno Smith, 12. Sam Darnold, 13. Brock Purdy, 14. CJ Stroud, 15. Bryce Young, 16. Kyler Murray, 17. Tua Tagovailoa, 18. Then Dak Prescott, 19. Then finally you get to number 20 and you get to Bo Nix.
Wow. I mean, where do you even start? We've seen this so many times before during the season. I'm not surprised we're seeing it after the season. Everything he said there, your descriptor, you think it's a top 5, top 10 quarterback. Why does he have him ranked at 20? But they never explain themselves, right, Chad? They never show their work. They always just give the answer and expect us to just go along with it. Are we going on takes, as he mentioned in there, or are we going on pure stats and ball knowledge? You go on pure stats and ball knowledge. You don't have Geno Smith. What is it, 12th, 11th, whatever? You don't have Bo Nix at 20. 12. And you don't have Bryce Young as high as he is, Kyler Murray. Those guys should be in the 20s. Again, his opinion, he's entitled to it. I'll just say that I vehemently disagree.
Yeah, kind of interesting. What do you guys think? Is Bo Nix the 20th best quarterback of the 2024 season if you're doing a QB? I mean, yeah, BK, it's just off-season fodder, right? Like, it's just for fun. That's what it's about. And we discuss it, and it's good for conversation. Nobody's hanging their hat on it or getting too serious about it. But if it was Zach coming from blah 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 blog, we're not even mentioning it. When it's NFL.com or it's ESPN or etc., there's certain publications where it's worthy of bringing it to your guys' attention. And in this case, there was so many logical incongruencies to the rankings that we definitely wanted you guys to know about this one.
And I'll tell you who cares, BK. Sean Payton, Bo Nix. You don't think they're reading the tweets? You don't think they're reading the articles and the rankings? Look at the hype video that Bo Nix put out before the Kansas City game, I think it was, before they got into the playoffs or after they clinched. They know all that's being said. They read all that's being written about them. So they're going to use this as motivation. And if it can help make them better, even incrementally, it does matter.
Oh, yeah. And Sean Payton, man, the 2 years he's been here, I'll tell you, he is, of all of the coaches the Broncos have had, including Nathaniel Hackett, at least from like what I can remember him saying, Zach, Sean Payton's admissions on how much he is actually reading X and reading the headlines on the internet. I mean, he is very aware of it. And I think it's in part, Zach, because he is sensitive. All right. Like a lot of highly winners, big time producers, doesn't matter, are sensitive because it's fuel. And that's the other aspect of it, Zach, is that he wants to find those little, shade stories where the Broncos or a player's getting faded because he can help use it as motivation to either lift the player, lift a unit, lift the team. These are things that are definitely being talked about. Do they matter? Like BK saying, in the grand scheme of things, it's conversation. It's off-season fodder, but we know that Sean Payton, as Zach was saying, he pays a lot of attention to this kind of stuff.
Remember what he said earlier last year? He goes, I have 2 middle fingers, but I've gotten better about not using them. But best believe he's using those middle fingers behind closed doors when he's talking to Bo Nix, when he's talking to his players to get them fired up. This will be stored up here and it won't be forgotten.
Oh, yeah. Fully. We got String Guy. Always want to try to get to String Guy when he's in the chat saying, hi, Chad, Zach, and Scott. David, Broncos country, after making the playoffs for the first time since 15, I'm supportive of whatever free agent moves Payton wants to make. Yeah, one of those, thank you, buddy. One of those common, one of the common little catchphrases that came out of the 2011 through, even still the majority of his entire front office tenure of John Elway was hashtag in John we trust or in Elway we trust, etc. And honestly, so far, like nobody it's football. It's not blind trust, but up to this point, Zach, Sean Payton has more than earned my trust in terms of the offseason moves. Even that bold move to bench Russ at the end of the 23 season and release him, getting skinny on the cap, going young, drafting a quarterback, like all of these big fork in the road moves that he's made have redounded to Broncos' success, which earns clout, earns credibility. You can trust him. And then, Zach, when you compound that with George Payton's track record as a draft artist and a free agent guy, like you should feel very confident with, depending on the publication you want to trust, somewhere between 35 to 50 million in cap space. Okay. And a full complement of draft picks. They're going to fill some holes.
When you're the coach that ends a decade-long playoff drought, yeah, you earn the benefit of the doubt, at least in the short term. So I just think it's overall very nice, Chad, that we're not debating who they're going to draft at quarterback, what head coach they're going to hire, what GM they're going to hire. If the biggest debate we have is which free agent they're going to sign or which player they're going to draft, times have changed in such a great, amazing way.
We have the Lady D jumping in off the top rope.
Deanna.
Thank you,
Thank
Deanna.
you.
We love you. Appreciate you so much. She says, evening, Chad, Zach, and Scott. We need a tight end and a running back drafted. Don't want to overpay in free agency. Then still need either one. Just my opinion. Looking forward to this coming season. MHH for life. We are too. And it'll be here before you know it. That's one of the nice benefits of doing the nightly live streams, of which Zach and I participate in 3 of those each week, is it does help pass the time. It shortens that big gap between, early January and when football really starts kicking up again in training camp. But yeah, tight end, running back. And it's interesting on that same topic, Zach, after your message to the Lady D here, your topic here, I want to get to what Woody Page said about some of the Broncos needs. I wrote about it today. Kind of interesting, but your thoughts for the Lady D.
First of all, Deanna, as always, thank you so much. Hope you're having an amazing night, amazing weekend, and we appreciate seeing you here with us on the MHH podcast. And I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. Obviously, you need a joker, a tight end, and running back. Probably use a couple of both, if we're being honest. And I don't want even to pay in free agency because I just feel like for the most part, it's a waste of time. If the players are not going to be long-term viable solutions, then don't even waste your time. Fill those areas of need in the draft. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the offseason. I'm really looking forward to going out to Indy with Chad, covering the combine, and then free agency right after that. And then we got the draft. It's a very exciting time of year. We're very fortunate to have you along for the ride with us.
So this isn't exactly, Deanna, on the subject of tight end and running back. It kind of is. You'll see. But your super chat helped remind me of one of the topics tonight that we wanted to get to. And that is Woody Page. Longtime listeners of the show know that he is one of the beat writers around Denver that I do personally read quite religiously. I've loved reading Woody Page for decades now, before it even became the internet. And Woody Page, now the Denver Gazette, in his Saturday column, so over the weekend, he had a couple interesting things to say, and not all of it was just like a guy spouting takes. Some of it came off, Zach, with the implication of some kind of knowledge. So one of the things is, and to set the stage, remember Sean Payton in that sit down with Kay Adams really played down her, especially her like kind of obsession that they need wide receiver help, right? He's like, well, hey, we're actually pretty good at wide receiver. And he went on to extol the virtues, of course, of the elite playmaking ability of Marvin Mims Jr. Well, here's what Woody Page wrote, quote, despite the driveling of dolts, the Broncos' priorities are not wide receiver and inside linebacker. So on one, close quote, on one hand, Zach, he is kind of confirming what Sean Payton said. Wide receiver is not on our priority list. But then the second half of that, he kind of refutes another thing Payton said in that same sit down with Adams, which you start getting your mind going, oh, was it a smokescreen? And that is, he specifically mentioned the middle of the field, inside linebacker, and safety. Was it a smokescreen? I don't know. There's something else he said here, Zach. Quote, the urgency is for a running back and a tight end, Page wrote. And one has to be, as Payton publicly proclaims, an amalgam, meaning a guy who can be that joker. But Zach, do you really think linebacker, considering that Cody Barton's a free agent, Justin Sternad's a free agent, Alex Singleton missed most of the season, is coming off an ACL, could it really not be a priority?
Unless you believe Lavelle Bailey is the long-term answer, and I don't subscribe to that. They need two starting inside linebackers for my money. I'm not putting all my eggs into the 31-year-old previously injured Alex Singleton basket. Barton, I wouldn't bring back. Sternad, definitely let him walk. So maybe Woody's right in the end, Chad, and come April, we'll have to give him credit if he is. But I see the Broncos, at least in the early free agent waves, making an offer for an inside linebacker. You need help in the middle of that defense, and I don't see how you ignore it.
Exactly. And as I wrote in the article itself, like, Woody Page is so often right. Like even that report, Zach, whatever it was, coming out of the 2017 season. Yeah, he reported, this was down the road, that he reported it toward the end of the 2018 season, that John Elway wanted to pull the plug on the Vance Joseph experiment at head coach and bring back Mike Shanahan, and that kind of got poo-pooed by then Pat Bowlen Trust / team president Joe Ellis. And there were a lot of denials around that at the time. And then through the fullness of time, as the years marched on, pretty soon it was pretty much accepted as, yeah, that's basically what happened. Mike Shanahan has said a few things to kind of John Elway as well. So anyway, Woody Page, usually whatever he says, if he espouses something like that, it's worth keeping in the old noggin as we get closer to the free agent period in the draft.
We're talking about smoke screens, and this is wishful thinking on my part, but I hope that he's been fed some sort of maybe disinformation or conflicting information to throw them off the scent. I don't know, Chad. I really want the Broncos to finally answer that bugaboo in the middle of their defense, get a 3-down superstar, set and forget, and not have to worry about this or have this conversation any longer. It's been years.
Indeed. All right, guys, we're doing pretty good. 42 minutes ish at this point in the live stream. What's Todd saying here? Excuse me, I was wrong. I'm not sure. Oh, I think it's an internal convo. But Zach, guys, first of all, 2-minute warning, so to speak, on any burning questions and topics. BK, by the way, if you can be there tomorrow, Broncos for breakfast, you can talk. I know Eric has done a lot of research on Sean Payton's kind of history of trading up. Be worth that. It'll be Eric Trickle's debut, taking over for Mr. Producer himself, Scott Kennedy, on Broncos for breakfast. We'll talk more about that here in a minute, but let this be your 2-minute warning. And Zach, before we get to some of the matters of business, there's one last topic I wanted to get your thoughts on. And again, guys, 'tis the season. All right, lists, rankings, grades, all that stuff. It's fun for conversation. And on that subject, NFL.com once again graded all 32 NFL draft class of 2024. And the Broncos overall, Zach, received a B grade, but then they ranked outside the top 10 at number 11 overall. And this was the article that Eric also had for us, but here's what was written, quote, and this is, I forget how you pronounce it, Gennaro Felice, I think is how you say his name. But anyway, of NFL.com, here's what he said, quote, I need to admit something. I seriously doubted Bo Nix. As a man who cherishes college football equally to the pro game, I remember the quarterback's deterioration at Auburn and stubbornly refused to buy into his Oregon renaissance. When Denver drafted him 12th overall as the 6th quarterback off the board, I scoffed at the trendy take that Sean Payton had his new Drew Brees. And when Nick struggled mightily in September, see a 1-4 touchdown to interception ratio with a 62.5 passer rating and a minuscule average of 4.8 yards per attempt, I felt a smug satisfaction for fading the most experienced starting quarterback in college football history, close quote. So, of course, he keeps his, as he should, focus in terms of the the remarks on Bo Nix, but Zach kind of skips over some of the bigger contributions from some of the other rookies. But that goes to show you there were a lot of people who just were not Bo Nix guys, and they were looking for that first opportunity, as he said, to fade him. Okay. That's why a guy like him, especially in the face of a season like Jaden Daniels produced, he's always going to have a harder time climbing the rankings because guys get set in their takes. They get set, they dig in, and they're looking for any angle, like even digging that up. I haven't confirmed that those stats are true. I have no reason to believe it, but his 1-to-4 touchdown to interception ratio with a 62.5 passer rating in September, it's probably true. I haven't confirmed it, Zach.
Did this guy go to a rival school of Bo Nix's? To come out and say that he felt a smug satisfaction when Bo Nix faltered as to, make his confirmation bias come to reality. I don't know how you call yourself a respectable journalist or analyst or whatever working for a major publication like NFL.com. A little appalled, Chad, that I admit that I give him credit for admitting he was wrong twice, by the way. He predicted Bo Nix would fail at Oregon and then in the NFL. So I give him credit for at least calling himself out, telling on himself, but it's proof that those of the media are waiting and hoping and preying on Bo Nix's downfall, and they care more about Bo Nix being bad than the Broncos being good, the NFL being better. It's a personal vendetta, and at least one person, I guess, had the courage to admit it.
True. But yeah, September, we know it was rough for Bo. The first couple of weeks in particular were brutal. Brutal. I mean, you look at the Seattle game, 26 of 42, 62% completion, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. The meet and greet game, week 2, Pittsburgh, home, 20 of 35, 0 touchdowns, 2 more picks. So he opens his career with first 2 games, 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And one of those, Zach, if you remember, against the Steelers was a bad red zone interception, which you never saw that again. That's encouraging. And then he finally turned over a new leaf in that Tampa game, not necessarily in the passing touchdown department, but you started seeing him get his act together a little bit. But anyway, interesting stuff. I would say, Zach, though, when you throw in Jonah Ellis getting 5 sacks as a rookie behind 2 guys who had double-digit sacks, that's worth mentioning if you're talking about grading the class. Audric Estime having some opportunities to become the starter. And in fact, I got to remind myself, did he start games? I got to double check this real quick, just for my own satisfaction. Yeah. 1 start, 13 appearances, 310 yards. All right. I would have included him. Chris Abrams-Draine, the final quarter of the season contribution that he made, even though the Broncos didn't fully rely on him, he did start one game and made plays. Like, he was not a liability out there, and he ended up coming, Zach, very much in handy for this team. And you go on down the list, Troy Franklin, hit and miss, took some time to kind of get his legs underneath him, but becomes the first one half of the first quarterback to quarterback duo to connect on a touchdown pass in NFL playoff history. Wild. And then Devon Vele and what he achieved. So I would say, though, even though he doesn't mention those guys, Zach, I would actually say B is a relatively fair grade for the Broncos rookie class. Ranking him, I would probably have put the group overall higher than 11, but I think the grade's relatively fair.
Just curious, what do you give the Commanders? The draft class ranking.
Well, let me pull it up. Let me see. I'll go to the actual NFL.com. Number one.
Number one. Shocker. What do you put the Bears at?
Bears. Let's see here.
Last question.
So real quick, he had Commanders 1, Rams 2, Chargers 3, Raiders 4, pardon me, Bucks 5, then Giants 6, Eagles 7, Niners 8, Ravens 9, Packers 10. So that's everybody who's in front of Denver, then Denver. So just to answer your question, I'm scrolling until I see Bears, just so at least we have that context. 15th, Zach.
Did he ever explain why he gave the Broncos a B? Or is it all about Bo Nix?
No, he doesn't really explain it. He just, let me see. stand by it, because I'm realizing that in the story we only, when you're aggregating and referencing someone else's work, you're not trying to necessarily copy every single word from their article.
Oh, I was just curious.
Let's see. Okay, so he does. Back to him. I take back what I said. He does say at the end, Zach, consequently, I've become a Bo believer, and given the promising contributions from other rookies like Devon Vele, Jonah Ellis, Chris Abrams-Drain, and Dondre Tillman, which I forgot to even mention, it's hard for me to think of him as a rookie last year because he played pro ball, just not in the NFL. I do think Payton could be building something special in Denver, but he doesn't really explain the ranking aspect of it.
It comes down to Bo Nix because he was a hater and now he's not anymore. I just don't know if you have a quarterback, whether you like him or you don't, who put up historic numbers, a 10-win season, got the Broncos back to the playoffs. How do you not give at least a B+? It show your work. So what I said earlier, Chad, these write-ups and these rankings, they never show their work.
Well said. Okay, guys, I'm taking. Oh, wait, yo! Happy birthday to the Ronks dad.
Birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, Mr. or Papa Ronquillo. That's really cool. Tell him happy birthday from MHH, Mike. Really, really cool. But Zach, we got a few messages for everybody, and then we'll dip on out. So don't leave quite yet.
Cannot believe it's been 50 minutes already. You guys are incredible each and every day. That was another episode of the Mile High Huddle podcast. If you're not doing so, please follow us on X at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on X at Mile High Huddle. Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and don't forget about Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking each and every single podcast, check out mhhmerch.com and get you some. If you haven't done so yet, please drop us a like and a favorite at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. You can find us on Instagram at mile_high_huddle. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your football pre-save 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please, very important that you subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you. You're muted.
Amen to all of that stuff. Hey guys, real quick before we get to the shouts for tonight, just a reminder. So tomorrow we're kicking off a new era of the morning show with Scott no longer doing the co-hosting on Broncos for Breakfast with Nick Kendall and Eric Trickle taking over there. And with draft season coming on, being in draft season basically, and the draft coming up, that's going to be appointment level viewing. So they're going just like the regular Wednesday, 7:30 a.m. So hopefully a little drive time for you guys. Mountain time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. But just wanted to give props to Scott because, he's a busy man. He's got a lot of, plates in the air, so to speak. And this wasn't necessarily something him stepping down as a host that he was wanting to do, but it was a necessity for what he's got cooking right now with his professional life and balancing being a dad and all the different things. But he's not gone from MHH, as you've heard us talking to him all night in the chat. He's here with us right now producing. He'll continue doing that in the evenings for us. But I just wanted to give Scott props and thanks. He's one of my best buds, and wanted to thank you, Big Dog, for everything that you've contributed to MHH. Almost getting to 500 episodes just on BFB. That's an achievement. That's not to say all the different episodes of various shows you either pinch hit it on or, filled in for, including this show, many, countless, who knows how many. But anyway, I know it's a tough decision for you, Big Dog. And just know that we support you and we love you and we appreciate everything. And, but it's also new era for the morning show. And I think it's going to be fun. Nick and Eric have some big plans for everybody, but big shout out to Mr. Producer, to Scott.
Yeah, I was watching Scott and Nick's last show, and he was like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still going to be in the background producing. And he said in our side chat, he's like making snarky comments in the private chat. Scott is not going anywhere. He'll still be an integral part of what we do. And I agree with what String Guy said earlier in the chat, that as good as Eric is, Scott left major shoes to fill on the morning show. I've watched it a lot, and looking forward to what he's doing in the future with us and elsewhere.
That's right. By the way, Pearl, happy birthday tomorrow. Tomorrow's a Monday, so we'll be live tomorrow night. I hope to see you in the chat, and we'll really wish you of actual, for real, legit tomorrow. So tomorrow's your Carl Mecklenburg birthday, 77. Really cool. Really cool. I hope it's a great day for you. And again, happy birthday. Appreciate you.
Happy birthday. We'll say it again tomorrow, but preemptively have a very happy birthday, Pearl. Thank you.
Okay, a mile high salute to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters helping us keep the lights on tonight, like the Papa Bear, David McElrath, Taylor Christensen, Shiloh Heesh, Eric Flynn on Facebook, George Fox on Facebook, George, the Georeich was his original handle that I remember. He's a huge Queensryche fan. Jumping back in on Super Chat. And I saw that you were throwing down a super last night too on Orange and Blue View. So great to have you back, brother. Give our best to Jazzy. Hope you guys are doing great. Jamal Killings, love you, big dog. David Yunkin, love you, big dog. And last but not least, the Lady D, helping to punctuate the conversation with a great topic, some great insight, helping us contribute to the conversation, and really appreciate the support, Lady D. Love you.
Thank you so much, Deanna. That's going to do it for us.
Let's do it.
That's going to do it for us, guys. Have a great rest of your Sunday. We'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the MHH podcast. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.